So, for my first movie review of 2015, I'm going to do something slightly different. Instead of reviewing each installment of The Hobbit, like most people have, I'm going to review them as a whole. After all, The Hobbit is one story divided into 3 movies, and was it really necessary to take something like this and make it into 3 movies? Do I really need to give a plot synopsis to this? You probably know it already, but what the hell, I'll give one anyways. So the story focuses on this hobbit named Bilbo, who joins this group of homeless dwarves who want to reclaim their homeland from the great dragon Smaug. While this is going on, the wizard Gandalf discovers that there have been a series of events that have been set in motion. In terms of what I liked about the Hobbit Trilogy, I do like how Peter Jackson does try to make the Hobbit more connected to the Lord of the Rings, because when you really read the book, it's a nice side story that takes place before the Lord of the Rings, but it's not really a prequel. And at least in the Hobbit book, there's a lot of loopholes. Like, when Gandalf disappears in the book, you don't know where he's gone. At least in the movie, they try to explain where he has gone to fill in that gap. And I do like how he did take, like, other sources from other Tolkien, like, literature and add it to the movie to make this more connected to the Lord of the Rings. And I think the main problem I have with Lord of the Rings is the focus on the characters, because right after the first movie, the focus is mainly on Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. And granted, I do like that trio of characters, and their half of the story was more interesting than what Frodo and the other 2 hobbits were doing. But here's the thing, Frodo is the main character, so I think you would have more focus on him than the, supporting characters. At least in the Hobbit movie, the focus is where it should be, on Bilbo traveling with the dwarves. And I do like the casting choices they made for each of the characters, from Bilbo to Thorin to Smaug. And I think the main highlight of the entire trilogy is the conversation between Bilbo and Smaug, because it's very much like that in the book. Not maybe verbatim, but it was like a general highlight. In terms of what I disliked about the trilogy, I feel like the CGI from time to time wasn't top notch. Like, there's some parts of the CGI were great, while others felt it wasn't quite fully rendered. And thinking about the first movie, I felt that there were some scenes in that movie that either ended prematurely or just go on forever. Like, I felt like the scenes that went on forever could have been shorter. At least that was my problem with the first movie. For Desolation of Smaug, I feel like I had a lot of problems with this movie because they introduced a lot of characters that weren't even in the book. And it feels like there's a lot going on in that movie because you got, Bilbo and dwarves going to Lake Town. Then you got the whole subplot with Legolas and the female elf following them, which somehow leads to a dwarf-elf romance that wasn't really needed. Granted, I'm not the first person to say that, but it wasn't needed. And I felt they added too much, Lord of the Rings material into this movie. Good intentions, but it wasn't executed well from my perspective. And for the third movie, the Battle of the Five Armies, that's just a dumb title. At least I thought it was a dumb title. I was expecting Smaug in that movie to have a bit more screen time than he did. I don't know. I just did not like the way that movie began. I think it should have showed, Bilbo and the dwarves going up into, the old town of Dale or whatever city that was. Then, then the title appears, then Smaug dies after the title. It just didn't feel right when Smaug died before the title. And the last 90 minutes of the movie is basically the battle. It's entertaining, but I feel like there's some parts of it that you could edit out. And I hate that one guy that you see in Desolation of Smaug and this third movie. I swear to God, I think he has more screen time than Smaug in all 3 movies put together. Ugh, he fucking bugs me. Oh yeah, and the musical numbers. Granted, you don't see much of them throughout each movie, but it's mainly the first movie where it threw me off. Granted, I know that in the book, there are some songs that are sung in here. It's just, they kind of felt out of place with the movie to me for some reason. And yeah, that's about it for dislikes of the movie. Now, as for the characters of the movie, there's a shit ton of characters. So, I'm only going to talk about the ones that stood out the most to me. Starting with Bilbo Baggins. Now, between him and Frodo, I think Bilbo is the more interesting and likable protagonist, because with Frodo, he's too nice. Second, he does indeed have the responsibility of bringing the ring to Mount Doom, but half the time he gets captured or stabbed. With Bilbo, he does have the ring, he just doesn't realize it. But here's the thing, he's smart, clever, and half the time when the dwarves are in trouble, he's the one that usually bails them out of trouble. Case in point, the scene with the 3 trolls. He saves Thorin from the Wog Rider pack at the end of the first movie, and manages to get all the dwarves into the barrels at the Mirkwood elf castle, which leads into the barrel sequence. He does a lot more than Frodo does. Long story short, Bilbo is a badass. Now, there's a lot of dwarf characters in the movie, so I'm going to only talk about 2 of them. One of them being Thorin, the other one being Barlin. Thorin is essentially the prince among dwarves who wants to reclaim his kingdom and essentially become the ruler of that kingdom. And when you first meet him, he's very cold. Like, he has no respect for Bilbo at all. But as the film series progresses, he has more respect towards Bilbo, to the point where they do become friends. But by the time, like, near the end of the second movie and throughout most of the third movie, he becomes very sick, to the point where he essentially gains the sickness that his grandfather had, where he becomes very greedy. But he gets over this and decides to become the badass leader he was meant to be. Now, as for Barlin, he's essentially the father figure among the dwarves, because with Bilbo, he makes Bilbo feel the most welcomed among the dwarves. And with Thorin, he has a legitimate concern. Like, he is looking out for Thorin, because he doesn't want to have Thorin go the route of his granddad, where he became sick with greed. And this is really obvious in the second and third installments of The Hobbit. Now, as for the rest of the dwarves, they're as I expected. They're one part badass and one part comical. But each of the dwarves have their own unique flavor. As for Gandalf, I'm not going to talk too much about him, because if you see the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, you get what you see. But the thing I liked about Gandalf in this movie is, between him and the dwarves, he has high hopes for Bilbo, like when they first meet, and he does have a badass moment where he fights against the Necromancer. Granted, he does get his ass whooped, but it was a cool scene in and of itself. And as for Bard, he is a really cool character, and I did like his motivations, because he had 2. One of them was he seeks redemption because his father failed to have killed Smaug when he first invaded, and now it's up to him to kill Smaug when he does awake. And the second motivation is he really does care about his family, and he is shown to be a really badass leader when he does become the leader of Lake Town in the third movie. There are quite a bit of villains in The Hobbit, but I'm going to focus on the central villain, which is mainly Smaug the Stupendous, or the Tyrannical, depending on what fucking nickname he has. But anywho, Smaug is a lot like his book counterpart, where they're both greedy, arrogant, and cunning, but the movie version is a bit more terrifying, where he's not just greedy, arrogant, and cunning, he's also really bloodthirsty, sadistic, and his willpower alone was enough to make Bilbo freak out and take off his ring right in front of him. And he doesn't stop there. He could have killed Bilbo right then and there, but he decides to essentially mess with him for a bit. Like, he was playing with his food, basically. He even does some psychological warfare stuff on Bilbo near the end of the movie, where he's just kind of like, oh, you care about those people in Lake Town, do you? Well, good. Then you can watch them fucking die. He even does this to Bard at the start of the third movie, where he's just kind of like, oh, your bow's broken. What are you gonna do now? And, oh, is that your son? You can't save him. You'll both fucking die. Like, damn, Smaug, you scary. Now, as for the other central villain, Asgard the Deviler, I didn't really think he was that interesting to me. To me, he was just more your standard orc who was just really intelligent and cruel and bloodthirsty. That's it. And he doesn't really do much in the first 2 movies, although he is the major antagonist in the third one. And I kind of do like how he has a beef with Thorin for some reason. Like, I understood what he was trying to do, but it's just interesting how those 2 are like rivals in the trilogy. And Bog, his son, is very much like his dad, where, okay, he too is smart, he's a skilled fighter, although he's a bit more sadistic than his dad. Like, you can see him enjoying the thrill of battle. Hell, he even gives Legolas a hard time. And there's a bunch of other characters, like you got the elves, which I don't think I'll ever even cover. And yeah, that's about it for characters. So, for my final verdict of the Hobbit Trilogy, they are a good set of movies, but each one has their own flaw. And if you're expecting this set of movies to have the same tone as The Lord of the Rings, you're not gonna find it here. So, before I give my final rating, what did everyone else have to say about the Hobbit Trilogy? So it looks like each of the Hobbit films got mixed positive reviews. Now, for my final rate of each movie, I'm going to do something slightly different. So for The Unexpected Journey, I give it a 3.5 out of 5. The Desolation of Smaug, I give a 4 out of 5. And The Battle of the Five Armies, I give a 3.5 out of 5. Okay, then add those together, that's like a 10.5. Divide that by 3. The trilogy as a whole, I give a 3.5 out of 5. So, what was your favorite movie among the Hobbit movies? Or, actually, better question, what's your favorite trilogy between this and The Lord of the Rings? And see you later.